This special edition of the Russia House. We call this People's Diplomacy. I'm here because of the work of the National Unity Club, who has helped organize this. And also, I need to acknowledge the role TASS has played in providing us with access to their headquarters here in downtown Moscow. But, I didn't come here to talk about TASS or the National Unity Club. I came to talk about people's diplomacy, and I'm absolutely honored and privileged to have today as my guest a member of the State Duma, Lantratova. I apologize, I messed up the last name. Lantratovna.
Lantratova.
Извините, пожалуйста. I may have messed up your last name, but I haven't messed up your story, and I've read your story with great fascination. When I read about what you've done in the work, I imagined a hero of Russia, a giant person. And I look at you and I say, wait a minute, how did you do this? I mean, in 2014, you were in the Donbas. You were rescuing children under fire. Not theoretically, people were dying. Could you tell us about that experience? So, what happened in 2014, and why would you put yourself at risk to rescue children in a combat zone?
The point is that I was the social worker. I made the all-Russian organization, the Union of Volunteers of Russia. It was presented in the 77 regions of our country. That's young kids, boys and girls that were helping kids, orphans, invalids, elderly people to participate in certain ecological projects. And during definitely hard situations when we had bad floods, Far East and Krimsk, and I was uniting the youth that was helping the other people. So from that organization, I went to the union with the president of Russian Federation in developing the rights of people, and I was, social worker. And I had a small son that was born, and I was putting him to sleep. And a woman called me from Kramatorsk. She was crying. She said that the city was blocked. We don't have any electricity, and we have kids in the basement sitting. She sent me the list written by hand, who, what building. And she said one thing, she says, I beg you, please do what is possible. Just take these kids out of the zone. Of course, the kids couldn't walk, go to school, they couldn't study. Their rights were, they didn't have any rights. But no matter the fire, the people were dying, the people were losing lives. And then I made a decision for myself. I went to Rostov, which is at the borderline with the southeast of Ukraine. And when they stopped bullets, they stopped firing, I took humanitarian help from this volunteering department in Rostov. I went there, and I went to those basements. And then the first thing what I did as just a social worker and as a mother, I understood that I had to do one thing. I want these kids to be alive. And I wrote a letter for a previous, one of the Presidents Poroshenko, that in 1994 that Ukraine joined a special convention where in the case of the military attack or war, they had to give humanitarian corridor to take the kids out. I sent a letter to him and I said, how many kids are there? And I said, I need this humanitarian corridor. I will take the kids to Kyiv, anywhere else. I just want them to stay alive. Then my letter was ignored. Nobody answered. But I was the head of the all-Russian organization, so I sent the letters to different countries of the world. I sent the pictures to them of the killed, murdered kids. And I said, please help me to save the kids. I wasn't speaking about politics. I was just speaking about the lives of people. And to my surprise, my letter was supported by 19 countries of the world. My letter was signed by deputies of the EU Parliament. They was signed by professors, Union of Sorbonne University, here, other colleges in different countries. And the letter was signed by the big social organizations, 19 countries, as I said. That was sent towards the Mr. Poroshenko. Give us the humanitarian corridor. We'll take the kids out from under the fire. Kiev or wherever you name it. Okay, he could not ignore that letter, and they call me a terrorist and a territory of Ukraine. They start criminal cases against me, 4 of them. I have a lifelong sentence now in Ukraine, and I have no choice. I understand that I am going to take the kids only on the territory of Russia. So when they stopped firing bullets, I organized buses. We collected money as a volunteer organization for gas, for gasoline, just to pay for it, because nobody went there because it was tough, it was under fire. And when they would cease fire a little bit, we would get into the basements, give humanitarian help, and the kids were running out. They were getting on the floor of the buses and holding them with their heads, changing the trajectory of our way and driving. We were taking them out of the war. We changed the trajectory because they sent bullets after those buses. The buses were turned over. They were hitting the children on the back. During that period of time, the local team was able to take out 2,700 mothers and kids, and 127 heavy wounded and sick kids, because bullets were flying directly to the houses. They were flying into hospitals. They had targeted schools, kindergartens. The bullets were coming into the houses, and the little pieces of the bullets, they get to the eyes of the kids. Here, take a look. Take a look at these pictures that I sent. If you see killed kids, murdered kids, wounded kids on the territory of those cities, and they were playing in a sandbox. This is the kids that in the nighttime, the bullets were striking at nighttime. And a piece of the bullet, they lost their eyes, they lost their vision. I picked up those kids and I took them through the border to be able to put them in the hospital. I started from a Donbas territory, and when I started having a special operation, I took the kids out of Mariupol, Khersonsk region, the ones that were in a very dangerous position. This is a boy, his name is Sasha. When they freed Mariupol, they shot the house. Mother died right away, and Sasha with his father. 3 days were laying under the broken house. Sasha had broken everything. When they took him out, and we brought him first to Donetsk hospital, the pipe was into his throat, and he had broken everything. We took him out to the territory of Russia. 13 surgeries he had, this boy. He's healthy. He lives with his father at his relatives. They shot bullets to schools, kindergartens. They destroyed houses of the civilians. And I want to tell you that when I went there at one of the times, I think it was 2022, and somehow Ukraine found out that I was going there. They, in the period of 4 to 5 hours, they would just continue to bomb the school. We were in a basement, hiding in the basement, and all kids were afraid. Small kids that I had to carry, they lost their hands and legs. They lost their eyes. I would never forget the stories. I remember a small girl, her name was Diana. She was trying to leave Ukraine, the Donbas territory, and they shot the car. Her mother died, her father died, her little brother died, and a grandma. And she was sitting for 4 hours between the dead bodies of her parents. And when I took her on my arms, in the bus. It took us 38 hours because we had to spread them out in the different areas of Russia. And she woke up. When she woke up, she started speaking with her dead parents. It was. I was shocked. I sent letters. I begged one thing, please help to save the kids. But the bullets were flying on purpose. They were targeted to the houses of civilians to spread fear. And people just, they couldn't. They just asked, they grabbed us by hands. They asked for help, to save their lives. And what these criminals did is that they came, they would go into the house of the civilian, they would kill mother and father, they would steal a baby to cut the border, to get into the border and pretend they're parents. And to get into our territory, they would kill priests or monarchs and would take their religious dresses and run away. And they just would throw small kids on the streets. And many times, I found small babies that were just either laying somewhere, just on the street, or they were standing in some kind of stroller. We officially, just official data, think about that, we have 300 kids dead. Donbas has an alley with an angel monument. Thousands of kids were wounded. Thousands were left as invalids for the rest of their lives. Officially, 24,340 kids. Kids were blown on the bombs, on the mines. And what I've seen from 2014, I have seen a lot of histories, a lot of stories. And they spoke about it a little bit overseas. It's like how kids were disappeared. 65,000 kids were taken out from Ukraine, and then we started finding the data and facts that there's a black transplantology where they steal the body organs. There's two labs where they did where they experimented on kids. I'm not speaking about the pedophile cases where kids were given to the same-sex marriages and taking away these kids from parents. I was just a volunteer. For me, it was one important thing for these kids to live, but to take them there, I was not given a chance. And it's a catastrophe. And after that, I took part in what we prepared a big report about the crimes of Kiev regime towards kids, where a long time, in details, we have prepared State Duma and the Soviet Federation. They created a special group with the special people, and they found the facts: how many were wounded, how many were murdered, and what experiments were done on kids. They found the data on the biological labs over the kids. They were inventing some kind of viruses using humans. And what I'm telling you is not words. This is proven, confirmed facts. We have over 4,500 criminal cases for the crimes that were committed against the kids, and it's a fact. And then, myself as a volunteer, I went into the union by the president of Russia, social activities, and Russia opened up the doors. We took in everybody. We had temporary housing for refugees. We had hospitals filled with kids. We took kids wounded without papers, without documents, just to make sure we saved their lives. We worked 24/7. And then I was just a participant of the group of a St. Petersburg conversation or dialogue between Russia and Germany. Even then, I had an opportunity to go to Germany. I went to Germany for different forums. Politicians were there from different countries, and I gave speeches. I was not a State Duma deputy. I was a volunteer worker, social activities worker. I showed the pictures, and I said, kids are dying. This is not politics. This is peaceful citizens. I'm not getting into the aspects of military, but they called me a terrorist. For what? That I took the kids out of the dangerous territory, that I took them to the hospitals to with the Russian doctors, and they went back alive and healthy, and they said that I do the sponsored terrorist. Those are the diapers that I brought, or the kids' food, dry food, because the kids were in the basements. In Mariupol, there was four-year-old boy named Nikita. I brought him bottles of water. I gave him the water. He couldn't drink enough of that water. And then when the bullets were blown and bombs above our heads, he wasn't even shaking. He said, this is this rocket. This is that rocket. They all knew the rockets, the names and the sounds of the rockets. He was 27 days with his mother without water, without food, and underground. People didn't wash themselves. Dead bodies were laying right beside them. In the yards, in apartments. I came there and I took the kids from the basements, and the kids would hold me by the hand and said, you see this sandbox? This is where my daddy died. That's where my mama died. They just put them on the sandbox, their parents, because they didn't have another opportunity. People were just raped and used and abused. In 2014, when a lot of villages and territories I visited, that for people who spoke Russian language, they would put them in a bag and put them in a basement and beat them up and abuse and torture kids. They were raping kids, raping women, and that was all normal. It was all open. When the special military operation started, when I was speaking with the kids, they told me the stories that when Ukrainian Nazis were taken, their fathers kept in captivity, they called on the videos to their kids, turned on the video and they said, this is your father, he's captured, and they were cutting that person so the kids would see it. So the kids would see it. It's, what do you call it? What do you call it? It's horrible. And this is what I saw with my own eyes. I was constantly there. And nobody talks about that overseas. They keep quiet. But then, in 2014, 2015, 2016, I started writing different letters to different countries. And I told to journalists, bloggers, please come. We will show you the reality. We're not going to tell you anything. We'll bring you here. 19 countries of the world came over. We had 25 bloggers and journalists who were not afraid. They went through the border, came to Donbas. They visited the airport that was blown up. They visited the houses where Nazis were coming in, Ukrainian criminals. They stole a bunch of things, killed a lot of people. They just talked to people, and then they left, and they wrote different articles. We put those articles together, and we have a book. And we named that book Honest Donbas. We have a white book where it says concrete last names, the names and the murderers and the criminal acts they committed. We have a report that we put together. We sent it to different parliaments, different countries of the world, to Germany, including Germany, to United States, all over. So the people would see the truth. We have seen the truth, but unfortunately, all was useful. It was all showed against us. They started organizing different informational wars.
Это страшно. Совсем. Thank you for sharing that. First thing I have to say is thank you very much for what you've done. You say you're a volunteer. I'm just a volunteer. You're a hero of Russia. You're a hero of humanity. What you've done is mind-boggling, the courage that it takes, the dedication. In January of last year, I had the opportunity to visit Crimea and then go through Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk. And I remember the drive from Donetsk. At that time, you could still hear the artillery. The war was still close. Bakhmut was nearby. But driving up towards Lugansk, you go through the beautiful countryside of the Donbas, and you go through one village, and it's normal. Everything's good. But right across the valley, You come to another village and the buildings are destroyed like this. You see the buildings destroyed. No people, bullet holes. And for me, you know, I just see an empty building. And this happened all the way. You see the destruction, but you don't understand the backstory. What you've done is told the story of that building. It's not a story of the building, it's a story of the family that lived in that building. And how, you know, I'm a Marine and I've been to war. And normally stories like this don't touch me. But I'm also a father. I love my wife, and I love my kids. How do you do it? How do you, a mother, do this and not be broken? I mean, I went to in Lugansk, they have a statue for the angels, for the children. And there's photographs, there's a book. I just saw the pictures. You saw the bodies. How do you get the strength? Where do you get your strength to do this? Because this is not just admirable, this is courageous, this is heroic. Not for Russia, of course it's for Russia, you're Russian, you're very proud of being Russian. But what you've done is admirable for humanity. I mean, you've set an example about how people should be behaving towards people. You've done this amazing thing, and yet they call you a terrorist. You are a terrorist, the lady who puts her life at risk to save children, to help these broken families, to give them hope, to give them, the photographs are terrible. I thank you for sharing them, but it's just terrible to see. And you saw the reality of it. I'm seeing a photograph, because photographs, I don't need to tell you, they're pictures. But blood has a stench. Wounded people have a smell. War has a smell. It has a taste. It gets in your mouth. It consumes you. So when I see that picture and I know what you were experiencing, because I've experienced myself, it's just stunning. What gives you this strength? What gives you this? Especially when the world, my country, Europe, the bastion of civilization, the birthplace of law, of humanity, human rights. We call ourselves the defenders of human rights. We call you a terrorist for doing what we should be doing. Where do you get your strength?
You know, that's in our cultural core. We have people, often they're ready to come to help when somebody has a tragedy, because the worst thing that you can have in life, that's when you don't care, where you can pass human strategy by and it doesn't touch you. This society is doomed, and at the root of our national root, cultural root of Russia, the code that we have, we were always about fair, helping. We went through a huge bad war, World War II. The price, 27 million people. My grandmother went through blockade. She lived in Leningrad. She told me how they, as kids, would run away up on the roof, and those bombs that they were throwing, they were putting down with the special instruments, tools, as small babies. The first story, when she went to get the water at Fontanka from St. Petersburg, she had to bring the water. She had a small pot. She was thin, no food at Leningrad. A little piece of bread that they shared for all. She would take the water from Fontanka till she would come back home. It would be slipping out, the water. And when there's a little bit left, there was a man right there on the ground. And he would grab her and say he wants to drink. And with her tears, she gave that water to him. You know, she was crying because she came home. She could not bring water, but she gave it to him. And a second story she shared with me, my grandmother, at the blockade Leningrad, there was a ring bell. Her mother opened. You have to understand, my grandmother had two brothers, and they all both died. and there was a German there. He was shaking, and he was showing a golden ring, probably. Maybe he stole it or something like that. He was asking for food. She looked in his eyes. She took a small piece of bread and gave it to him. Grandmother started crying and said, "How can you do that? He's the betrayer. He's the enemy. How can you do that?" And where she answered, "He's also somebody else's son. I hope that if my son will be there, somebody would feed him too." For me, there are no somebody else's kids. That it's tragedy that took place. The people of Ukraine, the people of Belarus, these are all brotherhood. This is all brothers. We have one story, a very serious story. We're all Slavic people. We're brothers. And we understand very well how and what took place now. It's the fault not of Ukraine. It's the fault from outside. It was pumped. This conflict was necessary to make our country weak. But when I see how the kids were dying, and when I see all those bombs going off, you see that smoke goes away, and we weren't far away. We get into that house, and a 13-year-old girl, she was torn into pieces by the bomb. One guy died, small boy, 2-year-old boy, the bullet got into his eye. One girl was thrown by the mother behind the bed, and her hand was torn. When you see a one-handed mother bleeding, trying to put that girl together because she was in shock. We took those kids to the hospital, and I look at Zahra. I says, "I'm gonna take him. Let me do that, because if I don't take him, he's gonna lose the eyesight." She looks me in the eye and says, "I don't want to leave." And she said, "You have to leave because you have 2 more kids left." We made the movie recently about the crimes towards children. I came to the premiere of that movie, and that woman, she came up on the stage and she showed that little boy and how his sister lived, the other one dead. But it was important for me that I could save the lives of those people. These are human lives. When I go to Donetsk, we have a very serious job. We have all regions of Russia. They're all together in such an agreement. They are so united that we have special chiefs that are connected to the certain territories. They constantly restore a school, this one and that one. We restore the school, we build it, they send another bullet. So we put a lot of money in this because these are our people. We don't get separated from them. What united us, these nations, together? We had one language, Russian language. We have one more thing. That's our faith. Our faith. And today, during the military special operation, people of different religions, think about that, nationalities, they're all fighting together, Muslims and Orthodox Christians. When a Muslim prays, the Orthodox is covering his back. When an Orthodox prays, the Muslim is covering his back. So when I was coming out from Kherson, bring out the kids, the bridge was already more or less destroyed, and they were striking the bridge. And I remember the moment when the bridge was in the holes. At any moment, any rocket can hit it, and right before us, one rocket, and then another rocket. And I'm with 2 kids on my hands. I jumped out of the car. I lay on my back when I fell down, and we laid down just until everything quiet. So we get back in the car because kids are sick, and we continue to drive through the bridge on fire. You remember any prayer? He says, begin to pray and open the doors. He says, why? if you hear the rocket, you're gonna have to jump off the bridge. He says, come on, I've got kids. He says, well, then we all die anyways. And I understood that it was the longest ever bridge crossing in my life, because I couldn't understand where that bridge would fall down, but I knew I had to save those kids. And then, people never think about it. I just came from Donbas now. I was there, and it's horrible to see how during my stay there, I was 3 days there, we had rockets coming in, directed, targeted. A mother died in the eyes of her son, and people are going and they're still buying products because they're tired of the war, they're tired of bombing. And if one time you see that tragedy, we have Mr. Simonov, great poet in our country. He wrote a lot of poems about war, where the major brought the little boy. It's a special poem, talks about the death of the father in the eyes of the son. And poem where it says that you speak, there are others, and I have to get back home, and you have seen. And the poet says that you have seen that, you have heard about it, but I have seen that with my own eyes. So I just can't. I just see what takes place, and to leave our people, our nation, just want to help. When we just want to speak Russian language, believe in God that they want to believe, and they're not, and they're forbidden. When we understand that any president, first thing, there's a security of his country, the safety of borders, to protect the people, to protect the culture, traditions. Russia is very strong about traditions. We don't want to be given the tragedies and cultures from overseas. We don't understand the same-sex marriage. We have Caucasus. I'm small. My dad is an officer, and I lived at Caucasus for 6 years. I know the traditions of that region. I know those people. For them, it's a slap on the face if they look at the same-sex marriage. It's not in our culture. It's all given to us. But at the same time, look at the lie they talk about, that we are after this having as LGBTs and so on. But that's not true. We have people like that. They freely walk in the cities. They hold hands. As a mother of a child, I don't want my son to see that, but that's how they walk, and nobody touches them. Nobody touches. That's their right. Our president said that they have a right to do what they want to do behind their doors of their house. We took only one law about forbidding propaganda among the children of until 18 years of age. When I was at one of the territories, I went into the school where the kids studied in Ukraine, and I took out of their books that were taught, study books, right, southeast of Ukraine. We took out 300 different books and methodical special for the teachers, how to teach the. This is when I opened those books. This is what they had comics stories there, where a Russian soldier was with a bottle of vodka. There was a flag of Russia, and these Russian soldiers were killing little puppies, little dogs, would tear kids, and were always with a bottle of vodka. And there were holy warriors from Ukraine. They were saving this little puppy and untying the kids. That they did in the comics, in the books for children. They had books with pictures about Russia. This is how they taught the kids. They were laughing at the president of our countries. What else did we see? These are the pictures. What is on those pictures? The heroes of Great World War II were changed for Nazis, criminals. Bandera, Shukhevich, and so on. Soviet tanks with a German cross, fascist cross. And every word was filled with hate to all Russian. There was not such a thing as World War II war. It was a German and Soviet war. Now, more than that, this book about the protectness of the, it's just like a methodical book. We have a special subject is how to protect the motherland, right? And they teach you how to kill Russian soldiers through the gun machine, and the kids were prepared to kill Russians. And when I look at the literature list, it's actually was everything from NATO, from UN, under the leadership of, actually more than that, in Ukraine, from 8th grade, for the money of Great Britain, they had course like to learn and stop against the Kremlin narratives. For the money from the West, I analyzed the books, study books in the different countries of the CIS, where they call Russia occupying country, where they have hate against Russia. And what's important, for the Western money, in the framework of the official work, they rewrite the history. Look at these books. They say the resolution 2006, the totalitarian communism regime, Prague Declaration, they equal Nazis and communists. Other solutions. So they had the same date to celebrate Nazis' crimes and Stalin's crime together, made a holiday out of that. So that's in Poland, in Baltics, they have a double occupation where that refuses that Soviet Union and Soviet army brought the freedom to Baltic countries. And we see the attempts to falsificate to change the world history, to put the responsibility on the Russian Empire and USSR. 27 million people killed during World War II. They're trying to take it out of the books, but they don't understand one thing. We will fight till the end for our history, because once the country loses the history, the country loses sovereignty. We're not going to let it happen. Every family has grandparents and grandmothers that were dying for the war. I told you that my mother was in a blockade. My grandfather was the head of the airborne army, and the other grandfather, he was in the airborne army, he was a soldier. The other grandfather, he was a driver. He was bringing bread to blockade Leningrad so people could eat. We all have our own heroes. We will not forget that. And what they do is really, they know what they do and they plan to do it. So professionally, I do now with the topic of kids. You know, first, my education as a journalist. Second education, I am a lawyer. I finished out the magistrate degree, and I went to as a team psychologist, and I am professionally study the children's mentality and psychology at the scientific level of different countries, and including US. They study the power of internet and video games. Here is the study of the United States. It's how the video games influence, how through video games you can influence the mind of the child. What does it mean, the video game? Is when person gets into the character and they start thinking for the character, do something for the character. They think it's okay, it's normal. So when kids playing the game, foreign game, then they need to go to school, kill, school shooting, like Columbine. Then kids think it's normal. So in China, they put blood into blue and green colors so the kids won't understand it. This is Call of Duty. Look, there's a whole mission where they kill and are very horrible towards Russia, okay, in the video game, that all Russian soldiers and they're loyal to Moscow. These are criminals, military criminals, and their target is to kill civilians. The weapons of Russia is the weapon of terrorists. There's missions where you have to, where the member of the game have to become an ultra-nationalist Russian group, come to the Moscow airport, take over the people and kill policemen. Or after the terror act in Crocus, on a foreign Sting Counter-Strike game, they had a map where they offered to come and finish the killing of the leftover humans that the terrorists didn't kill. So I've spoken a lot more about other games. So the toys, in 90s we had these toys. Look, good and bad heroes. With time, all this culture gets in. This was the picture of the good hero was faded out. We start having other heroes, but now we have these toys, monsters, dolls in the caskets. Look at these toys. These are the values that we're trying to be given to our kids. So these kids is made by the Mattel company. What is it famous with that? In 2022, they sent $1 million to the United Arms of Ukraine in 22. Whatever money they got from selling toys, they sell the bad values that destroy the mentality of our kids, and with this money they're fighting in Ukraine against us, killing the same kids. And definitely we have informational war against Russia. Russia, they try to show it as an aggressor, to, hide your own minuses. Because in Europe, long time, people understand very well the circumstances. They have 30,000 sanctions against us, 12 packages. I am under all possible sanctions. Of course, I cannot go to any other country, so I could not go there and tell the truth. We have 30,000 sanctions, and at the same time, and our economy has not broken down. Economy is growing. The sanctions are not getting to the point that actually Russian economy went up 4.1%. And what happens in Europe? There's no job. The level of the life is going down. I'm not talking about the criminal migrants and the fight that they have over that issue. And people understand in the United States and in Europe that the level is going down. And the taxes that they're paying for this low standard of living, this money is going to Ukraine to pump Ukraine with guns. Everybody sees that, and of course people get upset. I have different politicians that contacted me from Europe, some just regular businesses, regular civilians in the same, speaking Germany, in France. They say, look what happens. Of course, face-to-face politicians say, we understand everything. We really see the picture, but publicly, they cannot announce about that. And people suffer, politicians suffer, economy suffers for the interests of some group of people. Because the conflict that took place, it wasn't the fault of Russia and Ukraine. You have to understand. So we have informational war against us. So the coordination is also done by the Department of the Foreign Affairs on the development of Great Britain and partnership, that they have a special department there. HMG Russian unit. It controls 72% of all the information operations against Russia and support Azov operations that we call extremists here in Russia. And there's a connectivity between the Azov departments and others, and giving the scholarships and to the people that were foreign agents as in Russia. So that's what we have.
You know, I listened to your story. It's compelling. I mean, I'm enthralled. I'm fascinated by everything you're saying. When I look on the battlefield, Russia's winning. Every day I see Russia advancing and the Russian military is doing well. You're losing the information war. This is a story that needs to be told, needs to be understood by the West. And I know they've sanctioned you and it's made it difficult, but you're losing the information war. Why is Russia losing the information war? What does Russia need to do to win? This is a compelling story. This is the truth. Why can't Russia take the truth and get the world to see the truth? Why are the British instead winning this? Why is Azov winning the information war against Russia?
You know, when we had a whole network of different non-commercial organizations, when they were sponsored by from the West and other funds, we had non-commercial organizations under the cover of helping invalids and elderly and kids. And I made a report and I was curious. I analyzed the leaders of these non-commercial organizations, NKOs, NCOs. Look at the biography. One of the leaders, for example, 90s, was doing the taking out social Soviet Union scientists to United States, fighting for democracy against communism. What is the organization? Gets foreign grants. They show the grants. Then, of course, they were trying to take it out from the website, but we still have the screenshots of the foreign grants. And I wanted to analyze, what do they do if their leader, he has in 1 year that I analyzed him, 973 publications in the mass media and 370 in foreign media. But the real works, only political activities, support of different opposition channels, meetings, riots, and a trial to destroy the country from the inside. This is why, understanding all that, our leadership, we took the law about non-commercial organizations and agents. There's same law in the United States, and moreover, starting from the very beginning of the special operation, military operation, for us everything got to be on the better side. On top of that, we learned, we started to develop our own technologies that we could not do earlier. We learned how to do that. We came out for our own production, and we started fighting inside of the country, that informational war. Now, yes, we won it inside our country. What we've done, we've cleaned the backyard, we've cleaned the sewage, we learned how to do the fake information. We have now different instruments for AI, systems of recognizing this deepfakes and what takes place. We have great number of patriotic platforms that are working inside our country. We do that. We learned that how to do that, and we work in different formats. We have to recognize that, and our society is so united, but at the same time we understand that we have to come out, and here I have to thank you, because as a Russian house, what you do overseas, they're highly important for the world to be able to know the objective truth, not these pictures that they take, re-photoshop, the horrors that Nazis did, that they kill the kids, and then they say that Russians did that. You know, this is what we need to do, but I am sure that step by step, the people in Europe and on the West, they will see that. They learn how to analyze. Of course we need to do it, of course. And we see a great opportunity in that. And I am ready to answer all the questions. I was ready to give a speech to show the truth to the people. I have to you just a little, the tip of the iceberg of what I have. But in fact, what's important to show the reality. And then people will make their conclusion. That's important. And again, I repeat that informational war. One more example. We have inside our country, what they try to do is that on top of the books that they published, where they redo the history, rewrite the history, they were publishing books through our Russian non-commercial organizations, where they see kids who drink alcohol and they say, what do you like to talk about? About peace and vodka, where they were telling about vodka and wine, and like in a prof-orientation department, the teacher of the high school, that before they like to read the lectures, now they don't want to do that. But when they take drugs, the students say that his lectures are a lot better. And so our country, in these books, it shows like all alcoholics, drug addicts, corrupted, and etc. And when we took out the books, and we see that these people get grants from Great Britain to create and write those books, it's all clear to us. We understand that how do you change the enemy, raise his kids in the wrong way? And we started stopping that. We put a special law about united educational field, and we watch the books that get into our schools. We made a law about the protection of the traditional rights. We see the truth. You know, we look at the corruptions, how much money has been stolen in Ukraine, or what is given to by United States and other countries, what is given for weapons, for guns. Everything is stolen from people. People suffer. Economy of Ukraine is destroyed, and it's important to see that.
As I said earlier, I view you as a hero for going in and rescuing the children, saving the children from the horrors of war. But what you've described, too, is what's taking place in Ukraine is a different kind of war. It's a psychological warfare against the children of Ukraine who have been exposed to this. Yes, Russia's passed laws. Yes, Russia's cleaned the sewage out of its backyard, and I congratulate Russia for doing that. That's the proper thing to do. But when this war is over, there's going to be Ukraine. You saved the lives of children who were impacted by the physicality of war. Do you have a plan what to do to the children whose brains have been corrupted by the psychology of war and by the efforts of the Ukrainians to teach them to hate Russians, teach them that Russian soldiers are bad, that the Russian language is bad? When this war is over, how are you going to help these children of Ukraine?
Our president gives a lot of attention to the help of the kids, big attention. And on our side, what we do, we are ready to work in this direction. And by the way, I didn't mention the phrase starting from the military operation. $1.15 billion were given to the media to fight Russia on the information field. So a lot of money was spent towards that. So there's great work ahead of us that we need to, there's also a lot of work against us. But you know, people in Ukraine, they suffer, and they see that on top of corruption and low life living standards, I saw that with my own eyes, how Ukrainian guys, they didn't want to go fight, they didn't want to go to war, because they understood that here in Russia they have relatives, uncles, brothers, sisters. They just came there, they gave the guns, and they just gave the guns, and they came to the Russian territory, and they said, we don't want to kill, we don't want to destroy, but they still had a lot of informational campaign. Yes, we have our own program, we have a plan, we're already implementing it, and for people to understand the truth. And I am sure that after the victory, We will have victory. We have no doubt about that. It will be done. Yes, it will take years to build this relationship. And I'm here that I believe in the most thing in a civil conversation. The civil society need to talk. That would help. But I know this the club of people's unity that club has created. Due to that club, they help a lot to make this have these interviews, important interviews, because you have voiced that. People will hear you. People respect you here in Russia, but also people greatly respect you overseas in the United States. And when people like you will speak after hearing the truth, that would help to the victory, including informational war.
Well, I'm here to help tell the truth, and you've been very powerful in facilitating that. In the United States, we have a senator, Lindsey Graham. You may be familiar with his name. Lindsey Graham wants to fight this war to the last Ukrainian. Lindsey Graham believes that it's the best thing for the United States to continue to supply Ukraine with the weapons that have killed and maimed the children that you have rescued. Let's just do something. I'm speaking to Lindsey Graham right now. What's his child's name?
Sasha.
Sasha. This is what American weapons do. This is what Lindsey Graham wants to continue. This is what anybody who seeks to continue this war is trying to do. Sasha, and the names of others. What's this young girl's name?
Vika.
Vika. My daughter's name is Vika. Vika. Remember her name, know the names of them all, because this is what American weapons do. If you could send a message right now to Lindsey Graham, what would you tell him? What would you tell the American people about these weapons that we want to send to Ukraine?
Я хочу сказать, что
What I want to say is this:
они никогда
they will never,
поддерживают
those that support the war, senators and others,
просто не видели,
they have never seen ever.
когда перед тобой
What does it mean when you have a child, innocent child, when his hand is blown or leg is blown? They have not done anything in life against the United States or against Europe. He just wanted to leave.
боль,
The pain, the hurt in the eyes of kids,
кровь,
the blood,
счастье,
all the bad things, those broken lives and destinies. You have never seen those. Genetically, they don't understand that, because they never went through such a war as we did, when all of us together were united to protect the nation.
не знать, сколько человек.
They don't understand how many tragedies and human lives were lost. Kids are number one. These tragedies will come back to you. They don't understand that. They can't understand that what it is if Lord permit their kids would go through it. They cannot comprehend that message. And life is like that sooner or later it's gonna get back to you. And I'm not talking about politics or anything else. I'm speaking about these kids that were just murdered there, that I have seen with my own eyes. And I want, look, this is the way you carry a dead child. I want
Они туда приехали,
them to go there,
приехали сюда.
or at least come here
В глаза
and take a look in the eyes
этим родителям
of these parents
или этим детям.
or these kids that still stay alive. Just look in their eyes.
Если они смогут
If they-
отвести взгляд
If they're able to look them straight in the eye,
в глаза этих детей,
looking in this kid's eyes,
если смогут,
if they can,
Бог им судья.
God is their judge.
Но они отведут взгляд. И будет
But you know what? They will turn their eyes away because they don't want to see that, because it's horrible.
Kakaya razgovor. What a conversation. Thank you very much for coming on. You know, the National Unity Club brought me here to engage in conversations of this nature. This is the strongest one yet, because this is the reality of war. This is what war does. And again, I call you a hero. It's up to your government to decide how they label you. I label you a hero of humanity. And on behalf of all the children of the world, on behalf of the parents of the world, I thank you so much for what you've done. I've written a book. It's about the danger of nuclear war. My background is as a weapons inspector. I do my best to prevent nuclear war from occurring. And I talk about the dangers of nuclear war, but I also talk about the importance of arms control. And arms control is about people sitting down and talking, having frank conversations, as we did here today about difficult subjects. And it's through that conversation that maybe the hope for peace can occur. So I just like to offer you this book as a token of my appreciation.
Для меня это очень важно.
No.
Спасибо вам большое.
Thank you very much. It's very important for me. Thank you for the signature.
Это она займет достойное место.
It'll take a very good place in my office. I will show it to all my colleagues at work, and allow me to give you also, I give you a gift.
Это книга о России.
It's a book on Russia in English.
Это книга, которая
По-английски?
по-английски,
Спасибо.
по-английски, конечно.
Thank you.
Которая показывает,
It's a book in English will show how great a country that we have,
мы
how
умеем делать
we can
технологические
do
шаги,
technological breakthrough, no matter the 30,000 sanctions that brought that to us to a situation where we have 220,000 volunteer organizations in the countries and over. People are united after a special military operation, such a unity among people in our nation, and our country wants that peace. And I sure hope that due to these conversations like we had today, we will be able to get to peace closer, sooner, and we'll have great relationship between biggest countries of the world, Russia and the United States, and we will build this communication, and the kids will stop dying.
From your lips to God's ears, may it happen. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for coming on today and talking. I want to thank TASS for giving us access to this building. I want to thank the National Unity Club for organizing this. And I want to thank you, the audience, for listening. This is the Russia House. It's about capturing the reality of Russia and bringing it home to the American people. And the conversation we had here today is so powerful, so important. I hope everybody listens to these words and takes actions so that children like this will never again suffer at the hands of American policy. And I normally don't finish with an editorial, but this is America that did this. This is America that did this. We did it for geopolitics. We did it because people in the back room are drawing lines on a map and pretending to talk about global power. But the consequences of these ideas are dead children, broken families. We need to do better. And because of a conversation like this, hopefully we will do better. Again, thank you very much.